Good afternoon, class. This is Mr. Rodrigo Diaz Coloma. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Star Spangled Banner, give you a mini lesson about how important it is to know what the significance of the Star Spangled Banner in the verse means and how it came about. You ever gone to an athletic event and people around you were trying to listen to the song but didn't have their hand over their heart, didn't have move their hat? They were listening to the singer sing. Perhaps they were just chatting away and really disengaged and disconnected in there by the casualness, disrespecting the national anthem, disrespecting the men and women of the armed forces who valiantly served our country. If you knew what we know now, is that my belief that if you only knew the story of the Star Spangled Banner, it would make you stand almost at attention for what the significance it meant to the people then and what it should mean to you now. The Star Spangled Banner, the standard for American history as we talk throughout this class, is the use of chronological thinking to identify the structure of a historical narrative or story, its beginning, middle, and end. The War 1812. The learning objective that you will understand throughout this lesson is that after completing the mini lesson, students will be able to indicate phrases from the Star Spangled Banner that refers to the bombardment of Fort McHenry. List ways in which the American flag is used. During this lesson, I'll be talking to you about the War of 1812, the Battle of Fort McHenry from Francis Scott Key Eyes, the American defenses, the bombs bursting in air, and the flag was still there. The Battle of Fort McHenry, through the Francis Scott Key's eyes, when the British Army held Francis Scott Key captive aboard one of their warships during the Battle of Baltimore, they could never have guessed his fate would inspire the enemy's most patriotic song. Just a quick, brief overview about Francis Key, a successful 35-year-old lawyer and amateur poet, witnessed the bombardment of Fort McHenry from an American ship anchored about 8 miles away at the river. He's a Maryland native. He had a successful law practice in the District of Columbia. You ask yourself, why was he aboard a ship? He's trying to get Dr. Beans from off the ship. In 1813, he wrote a friend that he would rather see the American flag lowered in disgrace than have it stand for persecution and dishonor. As we know, September 12, 1814, British bombarded Fort McHenry. In the morning of September 14, Francis Key noticed the British had stopped firing. From there, I'm going to talk to you about the American defenses. American defenses at Fort McHenry was supported across the northwest branch by Battery and by Forts Covington and Babcock to the west of the middle branch. At Fort McHenry, the garrison commander, Major George Armistead, possessed a composite force of around 1,000 men. Bomb bursting in air. Boom, boom, boom. September 13th, 5 hours, 10 hours, 24 hours. By 6:30 a.m., they were in position, open fire on Fort McHenry. Remaining out of range, Armistead's guns, the British troops and ships, struck the fort with heavy mortar shells and rockets. But the flag was still there. By dawn, the rain subsiding, the British had fired between 1,500 and 18 rounds at the fort with little impact. The greatest moment of danger had come when the shell struck the fort's unprotected magazine, but had failed to explode. Realizing the potential for disaster, Armistead had the fort's gunpowder supply distributed to safer locations. As the sun began to rise, he ordered the fort's small stone flag lowered and replaced it with a standard garrison flag measured about 42 feet by 30 feet, sewn by Mary Piscopo. The flag was still there. The peace treaty was signed, and the prisoners were released. As Francis Keyes was released and started writing "Oh Say Can You See" by dawn's early light, he scribbled the first words of the song back of a piece of paper and finished it back on shore. He may have been the person who took it to Baltimore American. That newspaper immediately printed it in a large poster-like broadside and began distributing it along Baltimore. Each man at Fort McHenry received a copy. As we talk about the peace treaty and the 4 soldiers that were killed and 24 were wounded, the defense of Fort McHenry became known as the Star-Spangled Banner. As we talk about this lesson, you know that we can go on and on about the war and how it affected this fort and Americans. But now you know that Keyes was a vital person to the national anthem. So so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. He saw this war in our nation's time to put in this verse for our freedom.